Levarme la moustache en la camucha. Siento patanilo, mira tacatiki puletica. Siento patanilo, mira tacatiki puletica. Siento patanilo, mira tacatiki puletica. Siento patanilo, mira tacatiki tacatiki. Siento patanilo, mira tacatiki puletica. Siento patanilo, mira tacatiki puletica. Siento patanilo, mira tacatiki puletica. Sani levarme la moustache en la camucha.
What's going on? This is your man John Fortune, your host of the Frustrated Fan Sports Show, and today this is my season-ending coaches evaluation show. Now, prior to this, I did a coach analysis and improvement show, so I'm going to put the link of that video in the description below so you can review that and understand where my evaluations are coming from and what I'm talking about in detail. So I'm just going to start right off the top just so we can get into this and keep it moving. The first coach I'm going to evaluate is Scott Turner. There were a couple things that I said that he should do, so I'm gonna just rail them off. Get Terry the ball. Now, that was one of the things that I felt was a very key thing he needed to do, but it was get Terry the ball, not force Terry the ball. Scott Turner did a poor job with being able to scheme up to get Terry open the way he should be open. There was a lot of times where you just saw Taylor like trying to force the ball to Terry, and a lot of that is Scott Turner's fault. But you know, again, it was one of those things where it's like, how much of that was actually Scott calling the play for Terry or Taylor forcing the ball to Terry? Don't really know, but that was one of, to me, a failure on that. Rerun plays that are successful. Again, I go back to some of the times that he had the opportunity to rerun plays because they were just killing him. It wasn't until late in the season that he started to really understand why you do it. We saw the last game of the season against the Giants. He kept running the ball. Again, if the play is successful, keep on going to it. Don't stop going to it. They lose the game in New Orleans because he stopped going to certain plays. So it was just because he didn't recall a play that was successful the first time. So it was one of those things that it was a sad thing. Give Antonio Gibson more on third down. He did not do that. When he did give him the opportunity on third down, it was kind of like flukish plays that really didn't seem like they were going to work out. So again, he really didn't meet that criteria. He tried to, but not really. We saw a lot of other things that went on, but to me, it just didn't work out the way it should have. And last but not least, give the quarterback 6 plays in a 2-minute offense. I think he actually gave him about 12 plays because in the 2-minute offense, you saw how efficient that offense was. And I think a lot of that had to do with Taylor already knowing what 12 plays he had available to himself in regards to getting down the field in that 2-minute offense. And because Taylor already knew what he had available to him, you saw a more efficient offense in the 2 minutes. And that was different in comparison to before the 2-minute warning or before the 2-minute offense, where you didn't see that efficiency. We saw it when some of the games where Washington had the quick start and they immediately jetted down the field and scored the touchdown. Again, you saw that was like a 12-play offense that was going on. So he did do that, but like I said, he did about 12 plays. When it comes down to it, there were other failures that Scott Turner had. He's poor at using his personnel. Utilizing his personnel. Remember, we had the complaint starting in the first game of the season. Where was J.D. McKissic? He didn't really utilize J.D. McKissic as much as he should have. And then when J.D. McKissic went down, there was nothing to replace J.D. McKissic's output. So that was a massive failure, but that was because he didn't know how to use his personnel. Cam Sims was available, and you're talking about he was available at a time where you had the opportunity to have other guys available, and he just never used them. Like I said, Cam Sims is the biggest example of that. I mean, there were times where Cam Sims come in the game, he makes a play, but then all of a sudden we wouldn't see Cam Sims anymore. So that right there to me shows that he does not know how to use his personnel well at all. And last but not least, his situational awareness was awful. He had very, very poor situational awareness. Let's talk about that fourth down play. Fourth and long or whatever, and the thought of throwing what was it, fourth down? I think it was like 4th and 3 or something like that. Whatever it was, I know it was a short pass instead of just running the ball. Remember before that, it was like the play was 3rd and 3 or something like that, and I think Taylor ended up getting sacked. So he did not understand when it came to certain situations how to play out the situations. He never used the screen passing game that well. I remember it was late in the season that we saw our first receiver bubble screen. Like, that was like absolutely crazy. And there were so many games where that screen play would have worked, and he just did not do a good job with that. So for that, Scott Turner, to me, his evaluation to me, Scott Turner gets a D-. He's a very, very poor offensive coordinator. He's a very poor personnel guy. Like, he doesn't really scheme up as well as people want you to believe he does. And because of that, I just think that, to me, D- is where Scott Turner is in regards to his ability to be an offensive coordinator. Next is Ken Zampese, the quarterback's coach. I had one thing for him: keep the quarterbacks on time. He couldn't do that. The quarterbacks, Taylor struggled with being on time. Gilbert Grape, even though he came in and played well, there were times where he held on to the ball too long. And again, this offense doesn't work for guys who are statues. And then also, even when Kyle Allen came in, we saw him do some stuff, but we also saw him make massive mistakes as well. Let's talk about it. You're talking about, this is the second straight year where we've seen quarterbacks regress under Ken Zampese from their first years. So we saw how Dwayne regressed from being under Kevin O'Connell to all of a sudden being under Ken Zampese. Dwayne Haskins regressed very badly. Taylor Heineke regressed. We saw him regress in season. You talking about Kyle Allen. Kyle Allen regressed, and he only came in for a couple plays. Gilbert Grape, we saw him sit up there, and he wasn't with us for us to know he regressed, but at the same time, we saw him hold on to the ball pretty often. Ken Zampese has no history of really and truly developing any type of quarterbacks. And to be quite honest, if we draft a quarterback, I am in fear of this guy even being a success here, because Ken Zampese is bad, along with Scott Turner. You gotta put both of them in the same category. They're both bad. But for me, Ken Zampese, as an evaluation for a quarterback's coach, I give him an F. He like I said, 2 straight years in a row where the quarterbacks have regressed. That is a bad recipe for something going on. And if we draft a guy, and you're talking about already 2 straight years of regression, I don't see how a young quarterback can develop under him as the quarterback's coach. So for me, Ken Zampese gets an F. Next is John Matsko, the offensive line coach. My only thing for him was develop a young O-lineman. He actually developed 2. So, I mean, you're talking about Samuel Cosme came into the season ready to be the starter, and he came on, and it was great to see him do such a great job coming in and basically holding his own. He could have sat up there and failed, but he didn't. And he did a fantastic job. Again, he got injured very early on. I tell people all the time, the transition from college workout to NFL workout is completely different. So a lot of times these guys end up getting injured because they're trying to transition from the working out style. So that is why Samuel Cosme was injured this year, but he looked good when he came in. So he was definitely nice when it came to him being developed. How about Keith Ishmael? Keith Ishmael, for him to have been the 4th center on the depth chart, he came in and he looked like he knew what he was doing. I mean, he did not have to be tapped when it came to sitting up there and calling plays and snapping the ball and getting the ball to the quarterback. He did a great job. He did a fantastic job. So for me, John Matsko did his job. I would have liked to see more from Sadiq Charles, but I'm a little concerned about Sadiq Charles now. Coming out of college, I thought he was going to be a fantastic player, but it seems to me like he's struggling, or I don't know what it is. Maybe it's he's not getting enough time. I don't know, but his line, John Matsko's line, did a great job this year. And to be quite honest, he shows that he is definitely a very, very solid offensive line coach and one who's rightfully so deserving to keep his job. So for me, John Matsko, he gets an A+. I mean, to develop 2 guys that we did not see coming, that is a phenomenal job. Not only that, to also incorporate 2 guys who weren't here. I mean, to get Charles Leno and Eric Flowers on the same page to basically take over that left side, that was a great, great job. So A+ for John Matsko. Next is tight ends coach Pete Hainer. My thing for him was develop another tight end. He did that. John Bates, we thought he was only going to come in as nothing more than a blocking tight end. Well, John Bates ended up later on showing that he can catch the ball too. He can run routes. He can try his best to get open. Now, he's going to have to work a little bit more, but this was year 1. So I'm going to give Pete Hainer a A as well. And now I'm not going to give him an A+, but a lot of that has to do with Sammy Reyes' injury more than his development. We didn't get to see him develop another guy. So, but John Bates did look really well. So, like I said again, he did develop a guy other than, thinking that Logan Thomas just didn't get his opportunity. He had a fairly veteran group with Logan and Ricky Seals-Jones, but he did develop John Bates, and it does look like John Bates will, in fact, have a very solid future here in Washington. So, again, Pete Hainer gets an A. Next is Randy Jordan, the running backs coach. The only thing I had for him was keep his track record of developing quarterbacks. Long history of running backs, long history of developing running backs. Very long history. From his time in Denver all the way to his time here. To be quite honest, AG's development this year, we saw that he was able to hit the holes a little bit better. Even when he was fumbling as much as he was, we saw that somehow, some way, Randy Jordan corrected that. So, Randy Jordan has done his job. In regards to developing some other running backs, Jared Patterson doesn't look that bad. He looks like he can actually stay in the league. The one that intrigues me the most is Jonathan Williams. Now, if some of y'all who know how to look at running backs and understand what they really do and how they really are, they will all get excited about Jonathan Williams as well, because he has something special about him. When he hits the hole, and he gets through holes. And he also has, he seems like I don't know how tall he is, but he seems like he's very tall. And it seems like he gets through the hole as quickly as possible. And he shifts into another gear once he gets through that hole. So for me, I think that Jonathan Williams is going to develop into something very special. The down thing that I have about Randy Jordan is that he didn't develop one of these guys to be a backup for J.D. McKissick. Now, that's the only downside to with Randy Jordan. It would have been nice if he would have focused on one of these other guys, preferably Jonathan Williams, to be almost like a J.D. McKissick type running back, because when J.D. McKissick went down, we had nothing to replace him, and that was a very, very sad development. So for that, that's the only reason why I'm going to give Randy Jordan a B plus. Like I said, the only reason why he gets the B plus is because he did not develop a guy to be a backup to J.D. McKissick. That's the only thing about that. So other than that, like I said, he did a great job. B plus for Randy Jordan. The next guy is Drew Terrell, the wide receivers coach. He was not the wide receivers coach the year before. He was promoted to the top job. So the fact that he did that was great. I'm going to surprise a lot of y'all. I'm giving Drew Terrell an A for this. And I'm going to tell you why. In fact, I'm going to give him an A plus. I'm going to tell you why. We did not talk at all about receivers being out of place, receivers not running their routes right, receivers not running crisp routes, receivers not catching, receivers not being able to catch, receivers not attempting to catch. Nothing about the receivers was a problem. Most of our issues that came about was about scheme, not the play of the wide receivers. Cam Sims was available, and we did not see him. That's not Drew Terrell's fault. That's Scott Turner's fault. And like I said again, this was one of these things that his people were ready. DeAndre Carter was ready. He came in and made plays when Curtis Samuel was out. DeAndre Carter stepped up. Cam Sims, we have not seen Cam Sims drop balls since he's been promoted to the wide receivers coach. That tells you something. You're talking about De'Ami Brown. De'Ami Brown was going to be what we heard, he was going to be the starting number 2, which means that clearly Drew Terrell did something really well and coached him really well and got him prepared in the season to know that he was going to be able to have this guy available. So for that, to me, Drew Terrell gets an A plus. His guys were ready. It wasn't a thing where we were sitting up here trying to figure out if his guys were going to be ready, or if they were going to drop balls, or if they were going to run the right routes, or if they weren't running the right routes. They did their jobs. Not only that, his guys were also out there blocking. So he clearly did a great job with coaching these guys. And for this to be his first job, his first promotion into the wide receiver coaching position, he did a fantastic job. And for that, Drew Terrell gets an A plus for me. Not last but not least, but the next guy on this list is Nate Kazar. He's the special teams coach. The only things I have for him is let Ron know who your return man is and Cam Cheeseman's development. Nate Kazar gets an A plus plus. He did a great job of making sure that he let Ron know that DeAndre Carter was his return man. He did not care how much he was going to play on offense. He's my return guy. And sure enough, DeAndre Carter was on offense, but DeAndre Carter was the return man. He was the kickoff return man. He was the punt return man. And not only that, DeAndre Carter was a very dangerous factor in this season. Teams started to become very aware of him, and they found ways to kick him deep, kick him away from all types of things, so their coverage can get down there to stop him. He was a threat. And I think at some point, or I think it might have been the whole year, he was leading the league with return yardage. So again, you're talking about fantastic job by Nate Kazar for getting DeAndre Carter and letting Ron know, hey, this is going to be my guy no matter what. I don't want nobody else. This is my guy. Not only that, I mean, to get 3 of your guys on your special teams unit as alternates to the Pro Bowl is amazing. I mean, and understand this, when you're a Pro Bowl alternate, that's something that the coaches get to choose. So the fact that all the coaches from other teams felt that these guys were deserving of being alternates at the Pro Bowl. That was huge. And I mean, you're talking about Cameron Cheeseman is one of those guys. The fact that this guy, we all made jokes about it. I was like, why in the hell are we drafting a long snapper? Like, we should be drafting other guys. He came in, he did a good job. Nate Kazar did a great job with developing him. He was ready, alternate at the Pro Bowl. So, I mean, again, basically all his special teams guys has gotten in there other than the kicker. So, and even when he brought in new kickers, other than Chris Blewett, who, by the way, it probably wasn't a guy he really wanted here, but he was probably the only guy available. But other than Chris Blewett, you're talking about Joey Sly came in here and he did a good job. The guy who came in for, one game for Joey Sly, he came in and kicked a couple field goals and did good in that too. So again, Nate Kazar, A++. I mean, it's no getting around it. The guy did a great job this year, and he should definitely be a guy that is looked at as a guy to stick around, because, I mean, he did a fantastic job developing these guys, and his kick coverage and return coverage was pretty good too. So he did a great job. Last but not least is Ron Rivera. There were things that I said that Ron had to do on offense to keep everything in place. The first thing was time management. Ron did a great job with time management. There were times where the reason Washington was still in games is because he was able to manage his timeouts. And a good example of that is the Atlanta game. He managed his timeouts very well to the point at where Washington was able to come and pull out the victory in the end. Tampa Bay, he did a good job in the Tampa Bay game. He did a great job in the Seattle game. So there were times where Ron did a fantastic job. In fact, I think even in the Dallas game, the first Dallas game, he did a good job managing the timeouts then, where Washington could have came back and won the game. So again, Ron did a fantastic job with managing the timeouts and managing time. He did great. Number two was Guy Scott Turner and play calling. There were times where you could tell that Ron was telling Scott, run the ball right here. You throwing it too much, run the ball. And you can see him having to constantly rein them in. The problem is that it's still Scott Turner. So, as much as I want to give credit for Ron reining him in, it's also Ron's fault that he's here. So for that, yes, Ron did rein him in, but it's also Ron's fault that he's here, that he has to rein him in. And again, like I said, it's just one of those things where Ron just got the wrong offensive coordinator here. So because of that, I mean, again, he did guide Scott Turner to call the plays and stuff like that, but it's still Scott Turner. Last but not least was, don't be afraid to bench Ryan Fitzpatrick and stick with Taylor Heinicke. He stuck with Taylor Heinicke 100% of the way. Can't fault the man for it. He did a great job with sticking to his guns. Did a great job with trying his best to really evaluate Taylor so they can actually see what they can get out of Taylor. Now, again, I'm not sitting here saying Taylor should be our starting quarterback. Now, I will say this. If there are no real legitimate free agents out there for us to get, I would rather Taylor stay our guy and us draft the guy. But again, everything is based on how Ron handles all this. But like I said, he stuck with Taylor Heinicke the whole season. The whole season. He dedicated all 16 games to Taylor Heinicke, and that was good. I think Taylor only missed the one game. But again, you're still talking about the fact that Taylor was the dedicated quarterback, and Ron stuck with him. So I definitely got to give Ron complete credit for that, because he could have easily bailed, but he didn't, and I have to respect him for that. For me, Ron Rivera's overall grade over the offense, I'm going to have to give Ron a D-, and the only reason I'm going to give him a C-. The only reason I'm giving him a C- is because the two failures he has are the things that drive the offense the most, and that's Scott Turner and Ken Zampese. I honestly feel that Ron should really evaluate keeping Scott Turner and Ken Zampese around. For me, I've said it before and I'll keep saying it. I like Pep Hamilton. Pep Hamilton has a long history of developing quarterbacks. He also has a history of doing good when it comes to calling plays for offenses. I like Pep Hamilton. But Scott Turner, he's a disaster. He's a disaster. Like I said, I gave Scott Turner a D-. I gave Ken Zampese an F. And due to those two bad grades, I got to give Ron Rivera a C-. I probably would have bumped it up to a D if some of these other coaches would have been bad. But again, like I said, man, that's my evaluation of it. So that is my total evaluation of the coaches on the offensive side. Tomorrow will be my evaluation of the coaches on the defensive side. Again, Ron Rivera will be evaluated on the offensive side and the defensive side. So I just want everybody to know that. So Ron will also get a grade on the defensive side as well. But currently right now, Ron gets a C-. This is one of these things where this offseason is going to be very interesting, especially when you think about the ranks of the coaches. He has to let some of these guys go. To me, Scott Turner and Ken Zampese has to go, especially if you're going to bring in a young quarterback. You want somebody that's going to actually have a history of developing a quarterback and has an offense that helps a developing quarterback. So for that, that's all I got for y'all. But those are my coaches' evaluations on offense. You tell me what you think. Leave a comment in the link below. Leave a comment in the comments below. Other than that, this has been your man John Fortune, and this has been the Frustrated Fan Sports Show.